We'll continue our discussion of markdowns by discussing promotional markdowns. And as a reminder, promotional markdowns are used by retailers to try to incite customers to come into the store and make a purchase. There are a few categories of promotional markdowns that we'll talk about, some pricing techniques to set these promotional markdowns. And the first is really what we consider to be first-degree price discrimination. Ideally, retailers realize that they can maximize profits if they charge each customer the price they're willing to pay. So we also call this individualized variable pricing. And it is legal, and the process is setting a unique price for every single customer who comes into your store. You find out what that customer is willing to pay, and you set the price at that amount. So this is used generally. We see it a lot in car dealerships and on eBay. It's not practical for an average retailer with a storefront to use first-degree price discrimination because it's very difficult to assess each customer's willingness to pay. And also, if that were the case, the retailer would not be able to post prices and they wouldn't be able to have sales promotions because customers would feel that they were treated unfairly. If you walked into Target and you wanted to buy a box of Tide laundry detergent and the sales associate said, "What are you willing to pay for this?" and you told them the amount and that's what they charged you. But then let's say your friend walks into Target right behind you and she says $2 less and pays $2 less. That's not really fair in the customer's eyes. So it's really not possible to use first-degree price discrimination in a store. Unless, however, you are a auto dealership, you'll see first-degree price discrimination used in that setting. The second pricing technique we're going to talk about is second-degree price discrimination. This is also called self-selected variable pricing. And what happens in this case is that the retailer offers a multiple price schedule for all customers. And so they'll do this through their promotional markdowns to really increase traffic. So they'll use sales promotions. They will clearance items out. And although we talked about this as a way to get rid of unwanted merchandise, it's also a way to provide merchandise to our price-sensitive customers who don't care about wearing last season's merchandise. In this category falls coupons. So where we talked about in Chapter 15, retailers discount specific items when they are purchased. Price bundling is a form of second-degree price discrimination, and in this case, you'll offer 2 or more different products or services for sale at one price. So if you've ever bought a fast food value meal, that would be price bundling. It increases unit sales of items, but it sells them together as a group, which looks like a good discount for the customer, and the retailer is able to increase their quantity sold. Quantity discounts or multiple unit purchases are also a form of second-degree price discrimination. In this case, it's when the retailer offers 2 or more products for sale at a lower price. So if you buy cases of Diet Coke at Kroger, you might have a deal. If you buy 4, you get them for $10, or they're $3 each. This increases sales dollars and volume for the retailer, and it also gives the customer a bit of a deal. So that is second-degree price discrimination. Third-degree price discrimination, or variable pricing by market segment, is probably something that you all are very, very familiar with. Third-degree price discrimination charges different prices based on different segments of the market, so it could be demographic or geographic. You have a tool handy in your wallet right now that offers you third-degree price discrimination. If you've used your college ID to get a lower price, that would be a form of third-degree price discrimination. Movie theaters have lower prices for college students, and they also have lower prices for senior citizens. And these are lower posted prices, and they're completely legal. it is a known fact that retailers offer different prices for different segments of the market to try to increase sales among that market. Zone pricing is a geographic practice of charging different prices in different stores, markets, or regions. So if you've ever been asked your zip code before seeing a price online, Best Buy does this. They'll ask you for your zip code before they release the prices, and that could be because the prices are different depending on what part of the country you're located in. It's legal, zone pricing is legal, but some people do consider it to be an unethical pricing practice because it does offer different prices to different people based on a demographic or geographic identifier. A couple other pricing techniques that we will talk about in this chapter. Leader pricing. Leader pricing is the practice of pricing certain items lower to get people into the store and boost sales of complementary products. These are sometimes referred to as loss leaders. If you've seen the Burger King sign, and McDonald's does it too, come in and get a 50-cent ice cream cone. Well, most people are going to go and not get just the 50-cent ice cream cone, but they'll have dinner there as well. So it brings customers into the store. Oftentimes, grocery stores will have one item marked very low in order to entice people to come in and do their grocery shopping at that location versus a competitor. Now, sometimes loss leaders might be priced below cost. And at that point, retailers have to walk a fine line in order to make sure they're not using predatory pricing, which is an illegal pricing practice that we'll talk about here in a couple minutes. But the loss leader, the leader pricing, is marking a popular item at a very low cost in order to get people to come into the store in hopes that you'll also boost purchases of other products while they're there. Odd pricing is a pricing technique, and it refers to the practice of using a price that ends in an odd number, and this is typically a 9. There's a really interesting section in your book about this, and it kind of talks about the history of why retailers use the 9 pricing. But the couple of things they talk about, sometimes it's psychological. Customers are more likely to buy a product if it's $2.99 than if it's $3.09. So if you think back to our coffee mug, that was going to be priced at $14.39, right? That's an odd price, but maybe the retailer will price it down to $14.19, or maybe they'll roll it up to $14.99 because customers don't typically pay attention to the last few digits of the price. So, for example, an item that's $399.99, the customer will say, "Oh, that's $399." Or if a price is $2.79, the customer thinks of it as, "Oh, it's $2, $2 and change, $2 and change, $399 and something." And so retailers can use that and something, that and change, to roll up the price or roll down the price to try to entice sales. All right, so those 2 pricing techniques are completely legal, and retailers use them every day. But let's talk about a few legal and ethical issues that we come across in pricing. And the first being predatory pricing. So I mentioned this, retailers have to be careful when they use leader pricing to make sure that they are not using predatory pricing, because predatory pricing is illegal. And predatory pricing arises when a dominant retailer sets prices below cost to drive competitors out of business. So there have been a couple interesting cases of predatory pricing. One very common, very popular predatory pricing case is when booksellers started saying that Amazon was using predatory pricing because they were able to set their book prices so low, other retailers could not compete. And so your book walks through that example, and it's a really interesting read. Another issue in pricing is horizontal price fixing. Horizontal price fixing involves agreements between retailers who are in direct competition with each other to set the same price. This reduces competition, and it is illegal. Retailers should never have discussions with each other about what their prices are. Now, this doesn't stop retailers from looking at their competitors' advertisements, looking at their competitors' websites, doing site visit to their competitor's store, but it is illegal to collude with your competitors to price your merchandise at the same price. That is horizontal price fixing. And what that means is that the retailers could essentially drive up prices as long as both of them say that they will not go any lower, so customers are paying that price wherever they go. Bait and switch tactic is an illegal practice that lures a customer into the store by advertising a product at a lower than normal price, but then when the customer gets to the store to purchase that, they are pushed to buy a higher price model of that same product. Now, retailers were falling into a bait and switch trap a while back where they would not carry enough inventory. So Black Friday is a prime example, and retailers used to get in trouble all the time. They would advertise a large, fantastic TV for $299, but they would only have 2 in the store. And so then customers would come in and not be able to get it, and they would be talked into buying a higher priced TV in the store. It could also be retailers pushing their salespeople to push the customer to buy higher priced items once they're in there. Today, the FTC mandates rain checks are available if retailer to try to alleviate any bait and switch practices. The FTC will mandate a rain check, and this makes sure that the customer has a promise that they can get that item at that low price when it comes back in stock. So the fact that rain checks exist have really gotten rid of a lot of bait and switch issues that were happening in the marketplace. And also retailers, if you've seen a Black Friday ad, they now have to almost state how many each store is going to carry. So if you see one of the items for a Black Friday sale or a large sale, you'll see underneath it in small print, only 2 guaranteed per store, or something like that, just so that the customer is very aware of the fact that there's a low inventory level for that price. The last issue we're going to talk about is deceptive reference points. So reference points are an interesting topic in retailing because a reference point is the point against which the buyers compare the actual selling price to the regular price or the original price. So if if you go into TJ Maxx, or if you go anywhere where the item is on sale or on clearance and the tag says, a regular price or original price, well, what is a regular price? And do retailers set high reference points just so that customers think they're getting a good deal? There's a great read on page 412 of your textbook talking about reference points and how a retailer got an excellent deal on merchandise from a vendor, but still set the regular price at what the regular price from the vendor was, not what they paid for it. So then the customer thinks that they're getting an exceptional deal when the retailer marks it down even further. So there's a great read on that, but I would love to know what your take is on some of these pricing issues. I encourage you to look online and see if you can find examples of retailers who've been accused of any of these practices, because these cases do come up very regularly in the marketplace, and we do see a lot of cases against retailers who are accused of using some of these pricing practices. And this concludes our general discussion on Chapter 14. Part 5 of this chapter will walk us through some practice problems to help guide us before you take the quizzes and the exams.